Humanists Take on the World, Episode 16, The Secular Coalition of America in 2022 with Steven Emmert. All right, Steven, welcome to Humanists Take on the World.
Thanks, Dustin. Good to be here.
Yeah, and so, you've been with the organization for just a month now. I'm, of course, subscribed to the SCA newsletter, so when I saw one from you, it was like, wait, there's somebody new running the organization. Better get him on the podcast.
Well, thanks so much for the opportunity. I'm very glad you did.
Yeah, so I guess first off would be welcome to the atheist, skeptic, humanist, and secular community, which I'm sure you were already a part of. But
I was already a part of. I just didn't quite realize that I could be part of a larger community.
Yeah. All right. So you, just took this role, a month ago. And
correct.
You were in a different job, and then something big happened that changed your mind.
Yes. The Supreme Court happened. Actually, when they... Which you laugh so you don't cry.
Yeah,
I was working for an organization here in Washington, D.C. called Us Helping Us. Really liked it, working with some great people. Had no intention of leaving. And then the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. In previous positions, I'd worked for a number of Planned Parenthood affiliates around the country. And so access to abortion is something I feel very strongly about.
Yeah.
So when they came down with that ruling, I was not only angry, but I was also scared about where the country was going. And I happened upon seeing this position being open. And the more I looked into it, the more I said, I'm wondering if that's what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Had a number of interviews, obviously getting to know the search committee and them getting to know me, and just was really impressed with the folks who lead and are involved in the Secular Coalition for America. And so I'm excited about the opportunity to be the new executive director.
Yeah. And on the Roe versus Wade topic, it is interesting when Planned Parenthood and Catholic organizations are, like Catholic hospitals, are both supporting fighting state abortion bans. Like, that's the kind of world that we're in right now.
Yeah, right. I mean, I can't imagine being a physician and having to make a decision about how close to death does a woman need to be before you provide her the health care that you could have done 3 days before.
Yeah.
So she wouldn't have this pain and complications.
Right.
I can't imagine putting a health professional through that. And yet that's what's just happened.
And in with Idaho's trigger law ban, it's partially on hold because of the Emergency Medicine and Active Labor Act requirements that it contradicts. And what was crazy was in the court hearing with a federal judge, the people representing the state and the state legislature, because we're in a crazy world where those are different things, where they each have their own lawyers, they were trying to make the claim that, it's up to the doctor to figure out whether or not it's medically necessary, and no prosecutor would actually prosecute. Really?
Yeah. I mean, it just... the hypocrisy and the lies and all of it is just so astounding that it sometimes leaves me speechless. I just can't imagine people being so cruel.
Yeah. And
in the end, that's what they are, right? They're just cruel.
Absolutely. It's especially when you end up getting some of these really stupid laws that are getting They're even stupider than the stupid ones because they try to be incredibly specific about exceptions. And when you go really specific, then you have to be exhaustive. But if you don't get experts helping, then you don't actually cover all of it.
Well, and it's in large part due to the fact that the folks writing these laws don't know anything about women's bodies and certainly don't know anything about pregnancy.
Right.
And they make that clearer and clearer with each passing day. And instead of being embarrassed and saying, you know what, maybe this is an area where I should take a step back because I don't know what I'm talking about, they just talk louder.
Yeah. If they're wanting to prohibit elective abortions, that's horrible, terrible. It's going to kill women. But at least that's a different thing than prohibiting medically necessary. And that should be left up to the doctor completely.
Definitely. Well, of course.
Okay, so anyway, not getting off in the weeds here for too long. So all right, so now you're at Secular Coalition of America, and was that move in was a big part of that move? What's coming up next for the Supreme Court?
Oh, definitely. Right. I mean, while we've written the separation of church and state into the Constitution, it's clear from the Supreme Court, the current makeup of the Supreme Court, that they don't believe in that whatsoever. And so when they provided not only the overturning of Roe v. Wade, but a laundry list of other rights they'd like to take away, that was further motivation for me to say, okay, this is where I need to be, including same-sex marriage and, hell, sex among two people of the same sex. I mean, it's just ridiculous where they want to take the country to. And it's time that people started paying attention.
Contraceptives for married couples, even.
Right. Interestingly, and I'm sure you're aware of this, Clarence Thomas didn't bring up the Loving decision, which I thought was odd, because it seemed like that would be something that majority of the Supreme Court would be opposed to. But
well, he didn't bring it up, but I'm sure somebody else will.
Yes, I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
Oh, man.
But I mean, how many rights, have to be taken away before folks start paying attention? And so one of the things that has given me hope, was the recent Kansas vote,
mm-hmm.
where overwhelmingly the voters of Ruby Red, Kansas said, no, abortion will remain legal here. And that should have been a wake-up call to those on the other side that this is a losing issue.
Well, and especially
even
when you
Kansas,
especially when you consider that was not during the general election. They put that referendum or initiative or whichever it was on a primary ballot.
Right, in hopes that fewer people would vote.
And they got more votes than the general election for midterms usually get. That's insane.
And the other thing they should be paying attention to is that the fact of between the overturning of Roe and the last day to register to vote in that primary, over 70% of the new registrants were women.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So if you thought you could sort of slide this under and nobody would notice, clearly you're mistaken.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that was the percent. And in fact, if you look at any state in the union, since that Supreme Court ruling, the vast majority of new voters are women. Those who have, newly registered to vote are women. And it used to be like maybe 51, 52%. Now it's generally well over 60. But in Kansas, it was well over 70.
They were highly motivated with urgency.
Yes. Yeah, amazing. Wow. When you take a significant right away from half the population, they get angry.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy that I've got a 4-year-old daughter, and
good for you. That's a fun age.
Yes, absolutely. What world will she be? What rights will she have when she reaches adulthood? That's a scary one.
Exactly. That's what we're up against right now.
So, all right. So we've had Supreme Court rulings for the last 4 or 5 years, whittling away at church-state separation. We've got the Supreme Court whittling away at not whittling away anymore, taking giant axe swings at women's rights and teed up the rest of women's rights. What can we actually, like, what are actual remedies to keep the Supreme Court from being able to do this?
Well, the one thing we can do in the next few weeks is vote for elected officials who disagree with that decision and every other decision they're going to make, and then start codifying laws like Roe in Congress.
Okay.
To say this is the law of the land. Because basically in 1973, the Supreme Court determined that abortion was part of the right to privacy that was guaranteed in the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
This Supreme Court says that abortion is not part of the right to privacy because the state has a vested interest in the fetus as a future human.
Well, if you look at
somehow. So,
yeah.
So if we were to pass through Congress a bill guaranteeing the right of everyone to a safe legal abortion, then you couldn't say that's unconstitutional because they just put it in the Constitution.
Right. So, but if you look at the Supreme Court, they've, it wasn't that many years ago that they ruled that email isn't included in, or not just email, but any digital record is not included in the right to privacy of papers. So if you,
right,
but if you literally printed the document off and put it in a safe, or even just in a manila folder on your desk, that would be protected, but the copy on your computer is not. They clearly don't have any real idea of any right to privacy of any kind.
Yes, on that. And then the other point is, of course, you're talking about a whole bunch of people who do not understand technology whatsoever.
Right.
So, right? I mean, if ever you want a good laugh, watch a committee hearing where they bring forth, people in the tech industry and just listen to the questions they're asking, and you just go, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
So those are two separate things, but equally important, right? You want to have folks who understand technology, because of course the laws haven't kept up with
right.
what's available.
Or at the very least, have people that are making decisions talk to and defer to experts who do understand things like technology and women's bodies.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. But that isn't the point. The point is the power.
Yeah. And I did a series prior to rebranding the show last year on why Africa is currently so fucked up. And after you get past the systemic racism and the legacy of colonialism, you get to white evangelicals in America who are trying to make the family the base unit of society. And that movement, which was founded in part by people who were parts of the Sons of the Confederacy, is the exact same movement that has been pushing for overturning Roe.
Yeah.
And the end goal of where they want this to go, Clarence Thomas absolutely laid out the rest of that agenda.
Mm-hmm.
That's a terrifying world.
Oh, I know. That's what I have said. Like I was so angry about Roe being overturned, and then that turned into fear about what the future holds, whether it's for your 4-year-old daughter or my 3 great nieces, right? I mean, it's like, what world are we, we've already screwed the planet up climate-wise. It doesn't look like there's any going back on that.
Yeah.
So we've already kind of screwed them pretty hard that way. And then to no longer live in a democracy?
Right.
Where you have an equal voice?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just... It's a very frightening vision.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that is weird is they've been practicing this agenda in Russia, where Russia has had a declining population since the Soviet Union fell. So it was an area that was ripe for, let's do all these things that should help boost the population. So let's make it harder for women to get abortions. Let's make it harder to get contraceptives. Let's make it harder for people to live as gay people so that they'll try to, pass as straight and hopefully have babies in the process. And what they've found is it hasn't actually increased the birth rate at all.
No.
It's only increased the suicide rate.
Jeez.
Not just direct suicide, but direct suicide plus people drinking and drinking to death and drug overdoses. It's
right.
It's not improving society in any way. It's crazy.
No, of course not. Right. It's to think so highly of yourself that you know what's best for everybody else.
Yeah.
It's pretty astounding, right? But that's part of what power is, because I know better, and so I'm going to tell you what to do and how to lead your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. My mind doesn't work like that at all, so I don't get it.
Yeah, and the ultimate end result ends up looking surprisingly like Saudi Arabia.
Jesus.
Where only dads have rights.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else does. And the father has complete rights over all women in the household. And that's a horrible world.
Well, and then just think historically about our country, right? Where the only people who could vote were white, land-owning, property-owning men, right? Yep. And so when I hear folks talking about what would our founders want, how would they want this to be interpreted, I immediately go there. I'm like thinking, maybe they're not the best judges for how this should be interpreted. Maybe we should be grateful that we've come as far as we have, and that other people in this country can vote besides white landowning men, right?
Right. Which even that's private land ownership is even under attack right now, with a number of investment groups trying to consolidate all land and make everybody renters.
Oh my gosh, I saw that this morning, and where I don't even know what I had the TV on, and yes, I had to turn my head and actually look at it to go like, what?
Yeah.
They're buying blocks of homes.
And they're claiming that this is good for people because then they don't have to worry about owning land. They can just be renters. If we end up rolling back rights, then eventually we get to the point where nobody has the right to vote.
No. Every movie that's ever been made about this, 200 years into the future, it always seems like there's this upper class made up of very few people, and then everybody with nothing, right?
Yeah.
Movie after movie after movie is made like that, right? And it feels like that's the end goal for some of these folks, clearly.
Right.
Like that whole middle class thing has just gotten in the way of me having more money and power.
And yet somehow they're getting people who are going to be on the losing end of all of this voting for them.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and none of them would ever say, I voted for the last president because he looks out for me. You know, he gave a big tax cut to corporations and the really rich. I have to, in my heart of hearts, believe they think he was looking out for them. And maybe that was due to other issues, right, that didn't have anything to do with economics.
Right.
You know where I'm going with that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And if that makes them feel better that somebody's looking out for the poor, victimized white Christians out there, well, good for you. But that's not the country I want to live in.
No. All right. So, right now, what are the SCA's big initiatives?
Well, we just this past week rolled out our voter scorecard. With the elections coming up, everyone will take a look and see how their member of the House voted on issues that are critical to separating religion from government.
I live in Idaho, so I haven't even bothered looking at it because I know how they voted.
No, there is no need. And I live in D.C., so I don't have anybody representing me down at the Capitol anyway. So.
Right. All right.
What are the two of us even doing talking about this? Right?
But for listeners...
But for those who do want to know, they can go to secular.org/2022-voter-guide and take a look and see how your member of Congress does on issues that are important to us.
And if you're in a swing district, definitely look at it.
Yes, exactly. And I would also recommend you give that member's office a call and let them know that you support the separation of government from religion. They need to be aware that not all their constituents are screaming and waving a Confederate flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the election map and projections right now are looking pretty uncertain.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
Like how, and I'm looking at you, Georgia, how could this be even a question in your Senate seat? You cannot be serious. And someone had the nerve to talk about the one candidate's history of mental illness, violence, and having 4 kids with 4 different women. That none of that mattered because he was such a good Christian and was needed in the Senate. Running against the incumbent, who's an actual minister at a Baptist church.
Yep.
You just go, are you kidding me with this?
Yeah, which one's the better Christian?
And still that race is a toss-up somehow. I don't understand.
And both candidates are black, so the Confederate flag waving Christian nationalists, they can't really care that much about the real details.
Right. No.
Oh, man.
I don't know if I should repeat this, but one of my dear friends, who happens to be black, said that, Herschel Walker is the Republican version of putting blackface on their white Christian nationalism. Oh, okay.
Oh.
So, and clearly there's nothing he could do.
Right.
That would dissuade those individuals from reconsidering and going, I mean, my God, Newt Gingrich said, well, think how many times he got hit in the head playing football. So that would, there's no bar that is too low to put somebody in the United States Senate.
Man, it wasn't that long ago where that would be a disqualifier.
Yeah. Alabama's given us Coach Tuberville.
Yeah.
I mean, And then you have senators with Ivy League degrees, a couple of them, right? Bachelors and a law degree. And they make statements and comments that you know they can't believe because they know better.
Right.
Just pandering. And it's shameful.
Yeah.
And at some point, they need to be called out on it.
Absolutely. All right. So, yeah, I would, with the known of who's in the White House and the craziness that is the current Supreme Court and the complete uncertainty about how either House of Congress is going to go, a voter scorecard sounds like a really good thing to be putting your time on.
Yes, we thought so too. And of course, the interesting thing about this, Dustin, is that we took like the top sort of 10 most, the votes that were most meaningful for our work for the House. But because the Senate is so, they generally don't bring anything to the floor unless they know the result. So we couldn't even create a scorecard for the Senate.
Oh, wow.
There were a couple of items that we felt we should share, so we did, just in terms of how the vote went. But we couldn't really develop a scorecard like we could for the House just because of a lack of votes.
Permanent filibuster.
And maybe that's a good thing. Who's to say?
Oh, wow.
But again, that is what makes this November's election so critically important.
Yeah.
Because the Republican Party has made clear what they will do in a majority, right?
Right. Stymie everything.
And the House will just create all sorts of committees to investigate anything.
Yeah.
And so nothing will get accomplished that actually helps people.
Right. And then any bill that they'd pass would not make it through the Senate.
Right.
So it'd just be...
And they know that, so they'll just hold committee hearings investigating whatever they want to.
And pass
in
the
hopes
most...
of getting publicity and riling up their base and all that.
And then probably pass the most outlandish bills possible, knowing they won't actually become law.
Right. They have the ability to do that because they don't have to worry that, oh, shit, what if this really goes through? Because they know it won't. Which is a perverse way to govern.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Man, that's a stark look at the future.
You're depressing me on a Saturday afternoon, Dustin. Thanks. But it's true, unfortunately. And I think, and again, getting back to the vote in Kansas, it's my belief that folks are now paying attention. Like, that was the wake-up call.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I read talks about the inaccuracies of polling for a variety of reasons. But as of today, I would like to believe they're missing out on the large segment of women that are going to be voting.
Right.
That's my wish and goal and hope. And
yeah, if there's and with the increase in voter registrations and how that is skewed female, there's no way the polling is actually capturing that.
Right. And I certainly understand how difficult it is now, right? I don't know how old you are, but, when I grew up, the phone rang and we answered it every time, right? Because it was a landline in the kitchen. I have no idea if a pollster has ever called me or not, because if your name doesn't show up, I don't answer the phone.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. I get that it's a very different world in terms of trying to accurately randomize the population that you're going to poll. But I know after every election cycle, they attempt to update how they do it and the methodology they use. But I just think in this world, after that decision, there's no way they are accurately tapping into the number of angry women.
Yeah.
And men who, care about women.
Right. Yeah, and you just look at how they're doing polls now. It's phone and online, and the online polls are through buying ads. Right. So you're only catching people who are going to reading the kinds of articles that are going to be getting those ads and who don't have ad blockers.
Right.
Which is going to skew older. And if you're calling phones, even though it's not just landlines now, they're calling mobile phones too, but people who don't screen calls, that still skews older by quite a bit.
Right. My mother answers every call on her cell phone, and it just annoys the heck out of me. Like, why are you doing that? This is how you get scammed in your old age. Well, I don't know who it is. Well, right.
Oh, man.
The joy of caller ID.
We were coming back from a trip a couple months ago, and normally when we're traveling, my daughter has my old phone, and it doesn't have a SIM card in it, so she can just play games on it, and that's it. We forgot it, so she was playing games on my phone, and a spam call came in. She didn't answer it, but because it was, I have call screening on, so it didn't get answered, but it then popped up with the missed call notification, and she clicked on it and called them back.
Mm-hmm.
And for 2 weeks, I was getting 10 or 15 spam calls a day.
Oh, right.
Oh, man.
Yes, I mean, that's the loop that you can't get out of. That at some point, it's like.
What's your story?
So I grew up in a very small town in rural northwest Iowa. I went to college in Texas, and I went to grad school at the University of Houston. Go Cougars! And my first job out of grad school was with Planned Parenthood of Houston.
Okay.
Because they offered me a job.
Yeah.
I knew I'd always been pro-choice, but I also knew I had student loans coming due.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, the second day on the job, I wasn't working in the clinic. I was on the administrative side of things. But they said, you probably should go spend part of the day in our abortion clinic and see why women have made this difficult choice. And I sat in on 4 sessions where one of the counselors would, go over a number of things with the woman, but I also asked her, how did you come to this decision and why are you here? Right?
Mm-hmm.
In 3 of the 4 sessions that I sat in on, violence was involved.
Oh, wow.
One of them, who I will never forget, was a woman who said, well, we've been together for 7 years. We've lived together for 5. We both decided that we wanted a baby. Ever since I told him I was pregnant, he gets drunk every Friday and Saturday night and punches me in the stomach.
Oh, wow.
So when I say that these folks are just cruel, it comes from experience.
Oh, wow.
Because what exactly would they have her do? She wasn't making enough money to go out and put a down payment on an apartment herself. And,
mm-hmm.
She was there. So was she to spend 9 months getting punched in the stomach and then hope for the best on delivery day? I don't understand that level of just ignorance, or I don't even know what the word is, but to make everything seem so black and white when it is very much not the case in any woman's situation who's made that tough choice.
Right. Yeah, there's the assumption that it's just teenage girls that got knocked up when
right.
that's
that
a small
being
percentage.
Irresponsible, and they're just being irresponsible. Like, no. No. There's as many reasons why a woman has shown up at that clinic as there are women who show up at that clinic. And so, yeah. So like I said, abortion access is something I feel very passionately about. But yeah, then I sort of hopped around the country working for other Planned Parenthood affiliates, most recently in Nashville, Tennessee.
All right.
I'm very happy I'm not living in Tennessee right now. It's a frightening place. But,
yeah. And what was your graduate degree in?
I got a master's degree in public administration.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. My undergrad, I double majored in economics and political science. So while all my accounting friends, had offers from all these places, I'm like, no one's really knocking my door down to have me come work for them. But that's what I was interested in,
All right. Yeah, in public administration, that would fit pretty well with the nonprofit world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was very fortunate because I'd had a couple classes with a woman who was actually on the board of directors of Planned Parenthood of Houston. And so as graduation neared, she was like, hey, I just want you to apply for this position. So, like I said, it wasn't anything I'd really put too much thought into. I mean, I always knew I was pro-choice, but And then by day 2 of working at Planned Parenthood in Houston, I was like, I'm on board.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's critically important. And that's the other thing that just really irritates me is the folks who act like the women don't care who come in for that procedure, And after more years than I care to state of working at Planned Parenthood affiliates, there was never one woman who was happy to be there, right? I mean, generally there's a sense of relief, but nobody gets up and goes, ooh, it's my abortion day. And so for elected officials to act like women just do this just 'cause is just shameful on their part.
Yeah. Wow.
But part of their ongoing cruelty and just do anything and say anything for power.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. And then from Planned Parenthood, where did you go?
Well, I went from Planned Parenthood of Houston to being the executive director of Planned Parenthood of Omaha Council Bluffs. Then I was at Planned Parenthood Los Angeles. Then I was at Planned Parenthood here in D.C. I worked for the YWCA in New York City. And then I went back to Planned Parenthood in Nashville and decided that after living in all those cities, D.C. is the one that feels like home.
All right.
So I came back here and worked for an organization called Us Helping Us, which was founded by a group of Black gay men in the 80s dealing with the HIV and AIDS crisis.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It was, at that point, there was nothing else you could do except have support groups and have sessions on how to live healthier, whether it's, nutrition and just sort of mind, body, and soul. And the organization is still around, still focuses on HIV and AIDS services, prevention and treatment, with a focus on Black gay men. But it's still, it's grown to be over a $5 million organization with support groups that continue for men and women, mental health counseling, case management. It does really amazing work.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that does sound like a really good really good organization.
I was very happy there. Working with a bunch of young, energetic young men and women who, there's something about that energy that is inspiring and motivation for me,
Mm-hmm.
And then the Supreme Court made their ruling, and then this got me motivated.
All right. That is a surprisingly logical flow.
I know, right? I had to, before I applied, I, get my group of really close friends together and go like, it feels like I should apply for this job. All of the stars are aligning or something here. I don't know.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then, like I said, in talking with members of the search committee and then other folks involved in the organization, it was like, okay, this is going to be a good fit. And obviously it's been a crazy month, but it's been really good. I'm really excited. We have new leadership on our board of directors, and they bring some great energy as well. So I'm looking forward to the future of the organization. I think it's going to be outstanding. Clearly, we need to to grow as an organization because we need a more powerful voice to take with us to Capitol Hill.
Yeah, and with it being a coalition, how do you grow that voice?
Well, we've got 20 member organizations that are all doing outstanding work in the secular field, whether it's American atheists or Black nonbelievers. But they have sort of their primary focus and mission. We as a coalition bring them together and have been their lobbying voice and their advocacy arm. And so we've got a number of individuals who have joined us in our work. And so that's the folks that we need to reach. Somebody that I spoke to was saying the thing about the non-believers is that generally they don't feel the need to be part of a community, right? You don't have to get together Sunday morning for an hour. Like, oh, fair enough. So they're there, and we know that they're growing, right? We all have seen that research about the increasing number of people who aren't affiliated with a religion, particularly those under 30. And we just need to make sure that they know that we are here and we could benefit from them being a part of us and make sure that their voices are heard when we go lobby and when we talk to our elected officials, and that they need to be doing that too.
Yeah. Well, and as somebody who remembers being in the crazy number of people who aren't believers that are under 30 group, many of us are now barely under 40.
It gets better. It gets better with age. Swear to God, Dustin.
And when it's looking at the astonishing number of people who aren't believers under the age of 40, that's a huge chunk of the population.
Right. Which I think is part of why the Christian Nationals are they're sensing what's coming, and they're doing everything they can to avoid it.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, if without voter suppression,
right, they're toast.
Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia would all be completely blue.
Right.
Possibly Florida too.
Florida, who knows?
Right. Well, okay, Florida will be completely blue here in by the end of the century, thanks to climate change when it's underwater.
Yes, actually, right. And then, wasn't it Governor Scott and I think Governor DeSantis did the same thing? Like, Miami is pumping water out all the time because the seacoast is rising, and no one was ever allowed to say it was because of climate change. It was just like, well, the sea's high tide is just really high. It's like, really? we're that opposed to science.
Right. Yeah, and then they get storms like this one that just basically flooded the entire state.
Oh, it's just awful, tragic.
Absolutely tragic. Yeah, with storms.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in Florida, going through that, having nothing, and then not even having power. And where do you get water? But all around you is just nothing but water. And
yeah,
that's awful. Just awful.
And it was a big enough storm that how do you mitigate something like that?
Right.
Like, it was 400 miles across with tropical storm force winds. I can't even wrap my head around
that number, right? Like, you just...
Yeah. Basically, it was a storm the size of Oregon going across all of Florida. Like, that's just mind-boggling.
Oh, I know. You look at those satellite images, and it was like, well, this can't be real, right?
Yeah.
Only, clearly it was.
When it crossed into South Carolina, it was significantly smaller, but, like, depending on the satellite image, South Carolina wasn't there.
Right. The whole state was just, yeah.
Yeah.
Awful.
Absolutely. All right. So if people want to help out the SCA, what can they do?
They can go to secular.org/donate. start at secular.org. Look at our website, look at what we do, see the things we've done in the past, know that we're so excited about you voting in November. Find our scorecard, voter scorecard, and then hit the donate button and help us do our work more effectively. That would be huge.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and welcome to the secular movement.
Hey, thank you, Dustin, so much. Maybe we can talk again sometime, like after November.
Absolutely.
All right, I appreciate it.
All right, we got some feedback from Anonymous via the website. Is this going to be a series on climate change? The episode itself was really good and discussed a lot of issues. However, with only an hour and so many issues to discuss, it felt incomplete and a little scattered. So, the original plan was not for it to be a series, but this actually got me thinking about it more, and it was like, yeah, it definitely should be. So, there will be more episodes on this topic. This isn't one of them, but there will be several coming up, and a lot of really good ideas on stuff to cover, so that'll be really good. But yeah, there was definitely some ranting that was probably a factor in it being a little scattered. It was covering topics that then, got jumbled. Less than ideal, but that's something that happens with something like climate change where everything is so intertwined. So that would be my explanation for some of the scatteredness, was how in recording, the discussion naturally segued into stuff outside of the order that was in my outline. From Celia via the website, hey Dustin, I loved yours and Lauren's latest podcast episode about climate change. It's been a while since I heard your podcast because I stopped listening to your podcast a while ago. Nothing wrong with you guys, it's just that my podcast tastes have changed, where I'm not listening to atheist podcasts as much as I used to, even though I'm still an atheist. I'm listening to podcasts that are focused more on left-leaning, progressive politics, science, movies, Dungeons & Dragons, and video games nowadays. But then I recently saw on my Facebook notifications that said, Dustin Williams liked your post. And I'm like, Dustin Williams, oh yeah, that guy. I wonder how he and his wife and kid are doing. I'm glad your household sounds like they're all doing great. I enjoyed your latest episode, so I think I'm going to listen to Humanist Take on the World regularly again. Well, thank you, Celia, and welcome back. Everybody goes through this, where as you mature, as you grow up, as the world changes, what seems like the issues worth spending your time on shift. And there's also definitely a period of time that every atheist has to go through with just being mad at religion. For most of us, we move on to where it's not just that, and some just move on completely away from that. So, yeah, welcome back. And we got a couple of YouTube comments on that same episode. From Margaret, how about talking about geoengineering? Up in Montana, we're sprayed constantly. The sun is different, burning everything this summer. Geoengineering is a interesting topic, and this seems quite out there. Montana getting sprayed constantly. Yeah, that's called crop dusting. That's not part of geoengineering. That's part of pesticides for crops. Also, with all Montana's fires, they're also getting sprayed with fire retardant. The sun isn't that different. It goes through cycles, yes, but it's not that different. And everything burning this summer, that's been happening for quite a few years and will just be getting worse because of the warming and drying climate. And from Nolan via YouTube, I think we all know what the whole climate crisis is really about. It's the largest wealth redistribution scheme ever devised. Nolan, that'd be great if it was, but what caused the climate crisis was the greatest wealth redistribution scheme ever, where cronies and buddies got access to resources with no consequences, and then pumped all of these hydrocarbons out and made billions upon billions upon billions of dollars, taking money from the people and consolidating it into the hands of the rich. We also got a new patron, Arthur. Now, Arthur was a patron before, but welcome back, Arthur. And we have lost a few patrons. I understand that. Between just life's changes, with inflation, man, grocery bills are crazy. Gas prices have come back down in most of the country somewhat, but still really expensive. If you are supporting the show and you need the money to get by, yeah, you don't need to be giving it to us. But I also get that I have been unreliable with the show lately. It's been tough the last few months. We've got a lot going on, and we keep delaying preparation and recording of the podcast. I have reassessed how much time I am putting into the podcast. Not much. And what I can do to try to do better with that. And hopefully that will help. The goal with Humanists Take on the World is every other week. And I will do my best to get back to that more regularly. But I also don't guarantee that there won't be some months where it's just one episode. So if you want to contact us, you can find the contact form on the website at htotw.com/contact. You can leave us a voicemail message at 208-996-8667 or use the SpeakPipe button on the website. You can support the show on a monthly basis with Patreon or just once with PayPal, credit, debit, Apple Pay, or Google Pay, and the links are at htotw.com/donate. And until next time, remember, not all those who wander are lost.